Hi guys, I'm Kyle with the Nocturnal, and I just wanted to tell you guys congrats on the show. I thought it was amazing, and I just wanted to start off with Neil. Did you find it challenging creating a story given that it jumps back and forth in time and only focuses on four main characters?
Uh, yeah, but in a really fun way. Everything I've ever written has been a kind of linear narrative, and that's because I'm an incredibly undisciplined writer. I don't do any of those things that writers are supposed to do. I don't outline. I don't do treatments. I just make stuff up as I go along. And one of the benefits of writing The Sister was that I knew the story because it was based on a novel that I'd written when I was kind of young and full of energy and vim and vigor. So because I knew what happened, for the first time in my writing life, I was able to take the story to pieces and reassemble it in a different order. So it was challenging, and it's not something I'm used to doing, but it's something I really enjoyed.
Now I'd like to move on to Amrita. So, what was it like working with Russell and developing chemistry between you guys in such a short time frame format?
It's great working with Russell. Luckily, we were quite similar in terms of we were both quite playful as actors, so we weren't very rigid with performances. It was really nice because we could just play off of each other, and the scene was never as maybe one of us expected it to be. I think both of us didn't really plan things too much either, which was always nice because it just gave room for things to happen within the different takes. And we were lucky enough to work with our director, Neil McCormick, who was very much, I suppose, an actor's director. It was obviously beautifully shot, as you saw, and our director of photography was amazing. But at the same time, there was always room for being creative with the performances and trying out different things. And yeah, so it was great working with Ross, especially because he had obviously a lot of everything that was going on outwardly was very different to what was potentially going on inwardly. So in that sense, it was a lot of fun to play a character that technically had no clue what was going on with him. And for him to be trying to hold himself together and not fall apart in front of her, and basically lie to the person that he loved the most. And she probably kind of knows it, but chooses not to.
Exactly. Okay, I just wanted to go back to Neil. Could you just briefly speak how you developed the four main characters throughout these four episodes?
Do you know what I'm such an unprofessional writer. I have no idea how any of it works. I just make it up. And there's a kind of strange, I'm lucky in as much as I started as a novelist. And I didn't go through the kind of the traditional kind of, I've never taken a screenwriting class or anything. So I have no theory. I don't know how things are supposed to work. And I approach writing for the screen very much as I would approach writing a novel, in that when you're lucky, when things all come together, the characters begin, they kind of take on a life of their own. Not in any kind of voodoo way, but just because if you get them right, they're a kind of fragment of your own psyche. And you know when someone's true because you're actually writing a part of yourself. So yeah, I don't know how it works, but it just, when it does, it's fun. And when it doesn't, it's horrible.
Exactly. And then now back to Amrita. So, what do you hope the audience takes away from this show?
I hope that they take away a fear of their own capacity and what they're capable of, and how, I suppose, how fragile the moments in life are, which I guess we're very aware of at the moment anyway. But just that split second where one tiny mistake or one foot wrong in a plan could suddenly change your life completely, and it would never be the same again. And that cascade of things that happen after it. So yeah, that, and just to be scared shitless, basically.
Exactly. I agree with you completely on that one. So my last question is actually for both of you guys. We can start with Neil. So if you had to describe the theme in the show using like a couple keywords or what you think the audience took out of it, what would that be?
Amrita first, because I have no.
That's a difficult question because I think it will resonate differently with different people depending on who they are. And I think it will speak differently to people that are parents and sisters and lovers, husbands and wives, than it will to someone who, has never lost anyone, and someone that has lost somebody. Grief, how you deal with grief. I think a lot of it is covered. I find the script quite funny, but I've got quite a dark sense of humor, so maybe don't quote me on that one. But yeah, thematically, it's a great psychological horror.
So branching off that question, would you say this is a thriller, horror, or in reality a love story between you and Nathan?
It's a very warped love story.
I think it's a love story.
Wannabe love story.
Yeah. I think primarily it's a love story. Yes.
Yeah. On the rocks.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's ever been a spooky love story before, but yeah, I think it's a love story.
Well, I want to say congratulations again, and I really thank you for taking time to speak with me. And I love the show, and can't wait to see what you guys do in the future.
Oh, thank you very much. It's really kind. Thank you. It was very nice to meet you.
And it's great to meet you guys. Hi guys, I'm Kyle with the Nocturnal, and I wanted to say congrats on the show. I thought it was amazing, and I would just like to start off with my first question for Russell. So I loved how well you worked together with Birdie, and I was curious as to what your favorite scene to film with him and how your different acting styles complemented each other.
Oh, wow. Well, hello, Carl, and the Nocturnal. I love Bertie. I've always completely been in awe of his performances, especially his theatre shows. I remember seeing him in Matilda as Mrs. Trunchbull and being completely blown away. So to work with him was the dream. What is great about the Bob and Nathan collaboration is that we come from two different energies with the characters, and there is this friction because Nathan is really trying desperately to root himself in the real world and the reality, whereas Bob is completely floating off somewhere else, and they meet in the middle somewhere. So there's this absolute tension and electricity between them that just rubs up against each other. And I like the fact that there is this energy where Bob is so kind of casual about what's happened, whereas Nathan is so the opposite of casual. There is nothing casual about Nathan, and I think that is a kind of joyous situation to be in when you're an actor.
Yeah, and I just want to move on to Kate. So as the executive producer for The Sister, how did the pandemic impact your production and post-production process?
The shoot was finished by last Christmas, so we were out of the woods literally for that, and we were kind of halfway through post when it hit. I just sort of have images of doing an awful lot of sitting in a tiny room, watching something probably about 5 times more than I would have done if we'd all been in a post-production house watching it together, in order to lock things and to do all the kind of post, but also doing an awful lot of phone calls in the garden in what was a really beautiful sunny spring here. And so it was a sort of weird that first lockdown was such a sort of weird dream state. Yeah. But I think, in the end, I always say, in a rather sort of shallowly, that I always missed the bit where the runner came in and said, does anyone want tea or coffee? I miss the togetherness very much. But technically, I don't think we sacrificed anything. I think it just took a lot longer.
Interesting. Now back to Russell, given what you said about your character, Nathan. So what was your process in portraying Nathan's steady mental decline over the 4 episodes?
I think as a piece, you're seeing Nathan at 3 different stages in his life. So for me, it was about making sure that every stage in his life, I was able to root his energy and know exactly where he was. I wanted to make sure at the beginning, his earlier stages, that we are witnessing a guy who has so much potential, who has so much opportunity. He's ambitious, he's sexually awakening, he's got lots going on, he's fun. And that gets ripped away from him. And I wanted that tragedy of what could have been to be something that run through the continuation of Nathan's life. So for me, it was about rooting him at every stage so we knew who he was and what was lost.
Yeah, exactly, especially given the jumps in time. So back to Kate, what was your initial inspiration with Neil to develop this series in the first place?
Well, it's based on a novel of Neil's. When Neil and I when I was back at the BBC and we were setting up Luther, I was sort of, desperately trying to hang on to the Wonder Kid and reading his books, and read Burial and said, oh, let's do this. It took, as always is the way of these things, about another 10 years, I suppose, before actually he had a bit of time and we had a bit of time, and we kind of came together to do it, because I've always felt it was just one of those books that the tension starts at the beginning and never lets up. But actually he did shift quite a lot of things, because the book doesn't flash back and forward so much, it plays out. But he made the decision as soon as we started scripting it to get these 3 time zones working, and also this was the first show he'd written in a commercial hour. So because obviously Luther was a BBC show, so there were no ad breaks. So he really enjoyed the discipline of that and how to kind of ratchet up the tension. So we, it was always something we wanted to do, and it was great to have the opportunity.
Yeah, so that's all the time we have. I'd like to thank you guys again for taking the time to speak with me, and congrats on the show, and can't wait for it to premiere on Hulu.
Thank you, Carl. Cheers.